Hello, everyone. I'm back. Yes. After a really long 6 months of health issues, I thought I would just do a solo episode. Forgive my throat. I'm still having some issues. So if you hear me cough, forgive me or clear my throat. Um, so. It's very interesting. I'm going to try to talk about like the chronological order, some of the technical medical stuff, but I also kind of want to walk you through like the emotional state that I was going through and, just the healing and then some of the lessons that I learned and even maybe, like some tips for everyone for, if you ever do go through this and then a newfound respect that I have for people who um, have gone through similar situations. So I'm going to start off sort of, it's been almost a year now. Last October, I started having a neck pain. I had done some things in the backyard and I thought, oh, I just pulled a muscle. So I went to urgent care and she said, oh, you have like a neck strain. Here's some muscle relaxers, put some ice on it. And I thought, okay, great. Well, it wasn't getting any better. And so it kept progressing and getting more painful. And so I finally went into my primary care doctor in December. In fact, it was Christmas Eve. I remember it specifically. And I said, this is not getting any better. I don't know what else to do. It's not a muscle strain. It was going from my neck down to my shoulder, down to my arm, and it was just progressively getting worse. He gave me an injection in my shoulder. Didn't really work, but lidocaine for 30 minutes is okay. So he did send me for an MRI. So I go and I have this, I think it was neck and shoulder MRI. We get the results back. And incidentally, they find some thyroid nodules in my throat, which was completely unexpected. I'm going in there to find out what's going on with my neck pain. So we have to take care of that first. So, the next steps. And I want to say this, this primarily happens mostly to women over 50, although, men do get it as well. I'm advocating that we should all have a thyroid ultrasound, just like we have a pap or a mammogram. It's so surprising how they're so silent. I mean, I had four of these, one of them being at least 2 centimeters, and had no idea, had no symptoms, nothing like that. So, they, after that, have to go in and they have to do an ultrasound. And then once they do the ultrasound, if they see something, they send you for um, a fine needle biopsy is what they call it, which is basically, the ultrasound where they stick a needle in and it's kind of, they literally are kind of poking at it, multiple times to see if they can get any kind of biologic, cells or whatever, which is kind of weird, in my opinion. If anyone has ever had this done and you agree with me, let me know. You're putting a needle into something that it's kind of a crapshoot, right? A needle poked in several times, getting the correct cells or getting any cells that contain cancer or whatever. I think it's kind of a crapshoot, and I feel like it's throwing a dart, and hoping to find something. But regardless, they did find that it was follicular cancer, and so that meant I needed to have surgery. But here's the other weird thing. I go to the oncologist and they give you a choice, which is kind of weird. They tell you you have this follicular cancer cells in your body and you get to choose whether you want to leave them there. Hmm. I chose not to. And so I went in for surgery to remove the left lobe of my thyroid, along with some lymph nodes. And there's a piece that connects the left and the right, and they took that out as well. And so that was fine. Like the surgery was fine. What wasn't fine was the tumor had attached to a nerve. There's a very, it's weird, the human body. There's a nerve that goes from your brain to your vocal cords, and it goes, directly through your throat, very close to your thyroid, next to your thyroid. So this nodule had adhered to my vocal cords or to that nerve, to my vocal cords. So my doctor, my oncologist, when she did the surgery, she had to actually peel it off of it, which in turn caused damage to my vocal cords, which in turn made me not be able to podcast or coach for 8 weeks because it caused damage. And when I say I couldn't talk, I couldn't talk. Um, it was barely a whisper, then it was a little bit louder whisper, but that was really about it. And I know there's people who have had, had it longer where they didn't get their voice back. So still don't have my singing voice, but we'll get to why that didn't recover. So they do the biopsy on the tumor. And here's the weird thing. And I think you guys need to advocate. And I think you need to like, decide for yourself. So they take the tumor out and they send it to pathology. And the pathology lab with the group that I'm with could not determine if it was spreading or not. So it was cancer, but they didn't know if it was carcinoma. So they sent it off to Mayo. And so I'm waiting, waiting, waiting for these results. And it's really nerve-wracking when you don't know if you have cancer that's spreading in your body. I think people who do this every day for a living sort of forget the urgency that maybe the patient feels or the stress and anxiety that the patient feels. So they sent it to Mayo. It did take quite a while for that to come back, and it came back sort of this undetermined thing where it's like, well, we see cancer cells, but we don't see enough growth that we want to call it carcinoma. So basically, it's like a cancer in situ. So that being said, fine, great. I'm happy with that. Yearly checkups now, ultrasounds and all that, but definitely advocate for yourselves, guys. Get those ultrasounds because it just gives you peace of mind. I made my husband get one recently, and they did find a couple of nodules, but our doctor said not concerning. We'll recheck it in 2 years. Well, that's fantastic because now you have information. You know they're there, but they're not a problem. So go and do that, guys. Please, 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 please. It's like catching, breast cancer early. Let's just try to catch this so we can do something about it. And the old adage that if you're going to get cancer, thyroid cancer is the best one. Well, screw y'all that say that because no cancer is good cancer. And I've had skin cancer and also cervical cancer. So I don't care what anybody says. There's no cancer that's a good cancer. Moving on, I was excited. Got that taken care of over that speed bump. Now I can finally address my neck pain, which is now at this point escalated. I kept saying it was a 9 pain level every day because I had natural childbirth 3 times and I thought that was a 10. But funny thing about chronic pain, labor lasts a couple of hours and yeah, it's really painful. But when you have chronic pain, it is debilitating. It is mentally draining. Um, I was telling I was telling everyone, as a life coach, I tried to stay positive. I tried to figure out why this was happening to me. What lesson was I trying to learn? And let me tell you, I knew once I was over it, which now I'm pretty much on the other side of it, but I still have struggles. I'll tell you what else is going on. But I kept saying you can't mindset pain away. You can't mindset a health issue away because it's all I could think about because it's all that my body would allow me to think about. So trying to spend time with my granddaughter or trying to, take walks or just do everyday things without having to sit down, put ice on and, take, pain pill. It was just, I, and as a mental health provider, it's very difficult for me to even be vulnerable about this or admit this. I would never act on it, but I really was mentally at the point of just, I was exhausted and frustrated. And I told my husband, I can't live like this. I can't go on with this type of pain. So I get referred to an orthopedic surgeon in the medical group that I'm in. He was absolutely non-compassionate. He basically said, there's nothing I can do for you. And any surgeon that says he can, well, he's just taking your money. Needless to say, I left that appointment devastated, crying. I mean, I'm not a crier either. This is weird. My best friend, even my husband said, all the time that they've known me, they never saw me cry as much as I did during this, which says a lot about where I was mentally, which was just helpless, hopeless. So, excuse me, I got a second opinion, which is something I've never really done. And I found, thank goodness, I found one of the best um, spine surgeons here in the Austin area as well as in the nation. So shout out to Dr. Dreyer at Central Texas Spine Institute. He's fantastic. Poor Dr. Dreyer. He had no idea what he was going to go through taking me on as a patient. But he saw the MRI. He said, you've got basically no discs between two of your vertebrae in your neck. We're going to go in and do, excuse me, see, there's the voice issue. We're going to go in and we're going to do a fusion surgery. Um, and so what that entails is removing your any damaged, bulging, deteriorated discs. Mine is caused from arthritis. I have autoimmune disease. Um, so it just, there was no cause for this. Even though I thought I had injured it, I didn't injure it. It was just deteriorating. So they remove your discs and then they put in, it's kind of cool actually when you see the x-ray. They put in little cages. They're like round little metal cages, about yay big. And they put cadaver bone in it and they put that where your discs used to be. So I have two of those. And then they put a plate on the front of my neck, and then they put three screws to hold that plate. And then you use the stimulating machine that helps you to fuse all the cadaver bones to your bones. Kind of cool and high tech. So fantastic. Get the surgery. I think I'm in the hospital for 3 days. When I wake up out of the surgery, I have this complication, and this complication is that I was weak on my left side, and I had no strength in my left foot. So my surgeon, who's done thousands of these surgeries, was baffled, didn't know why, and so he admitted me for 3 days. I'm using a walker, I'm falling, the whole thing. I go home and he wanted me to go to rehab the first time. And I said, no, I'm going to go ahead and go home and do my own physical therapy. And I did. I did fantastic. I'm very proud of that. Ended up going to my follow-up appointment and things like seemed like they were on the up and up. I was feeling better. I had less pain. Um, and that was a Friday. And by Monday, I was in the worst excruciating pain like I was prior to the surgery. So I go into his office. Of course, I'm crying the whole time. And, bless their hearts, the medical community sometimes doesn't know how to deal with maybe pain or maybe people who are emotional when they have pain. And they were trying to say to me, well, you're going to have some pain, you had surgery and I know my body. And I think that's the key here, guys, is you really need to advocate for yourself to say, I know the difference and pay attention to your body, pay attention to these little, you know, aches and pains and new things that come up. If you have a headache, don't just blow it off. This might be the start of something. So I said, no, no, this is not surgery pain. This is pre-surgery pain. I'm in excruciating pain, and I'm so frustrated. I went through all of this, and the pain is still there. So he said, okay, well, let me do an MRI. He did an MRI. I go back to him on Wednesday, and there was a hematoma on my MRI. And he literally, that was a Wednesday, and he said, can you come in tomorrow for surgery? I mean, it was so urgent. My entire family was out of out of state at that point, and everybody was traveling. And so he said, well, I cannot, but I can next week. So here I am, third surgery in 2.5 months. So I go back in, they reopen it, and we do it again. Same thing. He has to take all that hardware out, take that seroma, hematoma. So there's two different kinds of hematoma and seroma. There's a difference between them. Look it up. I don't have time to explain it, but he puts all the hardware back in. He said, I'm going to use what's called rescue screws, meaning they're like, the heavy duty, extra strength screws. We're going to do that now because I've already screwed into your neck and now I need bigger ones. So fine, fine and dandy. Come out of surgery and now I'm worse. Now I'm out of it. And these are supposed to be outpatient surgeries, by the way. He admits me again to the hospital. I'm completely weak on my left side, still have the arm pain, foot still numb, can't walk. So he asks me if I want to go into a rehab center. And I thought, maybe I should. I kind of felt like I caused the hematoma, which is really stupid because later I found out I can't cause a hematoma. So I'm in this rehab facility, and this is kind of where my story is, to me, the most negative part of my story, because it was the moment through all of this health stuff that I felt the most unheard. Unheard. That's a good way to put it, by the medical community, mainly just the doctor at that facility. I won't shout him out. I won't. I'd like to, but I'm not going to. So I go into this rehab facility, and one of the main things at these rehab facilities is you have to do what they want you to do. In other words, you have to do your occupational therapy, your physical therapy, your speech therapy, um, which is hard to do when you're in pain. I mean, the last thing you want to do is walk around. And I know people who've had knee replacements. I had my appendix out. They made me get up and walk around for that. So I know that is something that they encourage. But I would think, maybe with what I had gone through, being that it was the third one, like just give me a little rest and wait till I'm stronger. I wasn't eating. Um, I was on a lot of medication, so I was kind of not there as much as I wished I would have been. So he was in around the clock, oxy, um, gabapentin. If I was in pain, he'd come in the room. We ended up calling him Dr. Condescending because anything that you said, he just sort of blew off. And I come to find out this was like the only kind of facility he'd ever worked in. This was like his very first thing out of medical school, which says a lot. I think he needed a little more, uh, maybe done a little more rounds and residency, but nonetheless. So I'm in this facility and I'm having the most difficult time, trying to do physical therapy. I can't walk. I was in a wheelchair. My blood pressure was unusually high, and it's frustrating because the nurses would take it and it was high and they would go, "Oh, it's my machine. Let me do it manually." And then they get a normal one. I wasn't normal, blood pressure wise, and I usually have been perfectly normal. So, of course, the doctor puts me on high blood pressure medication. Great. I proceed to go through this almost 2 weeks in this hospital. And whenever I would get, where I was questioning that I wasn't getting better because I wasn't feeling like I was getting any better, or my pain would escalate a little more, the doctor would say, "Oh, you just have anxiety over it." And he would what would he do? Throw more medication at me. Ativan. That's what we used to give when I worked in the Alzheimer's unit. We would give the patients Ativan. I don't think I needed Ativan. I'm not an anxious person. But it just goes to show you maybe he didn't have the experience that or the wherewithal to listen to me. So at one point I had breakthrough pain and I was feeling like, oh my gosh, here we go again. What if I have another hematoma? So thank goodness he called my surgeon and he said, get right in, get another MRI, send her to the emergency room. I go to the emergency room. First of all, my blood pressure is 202 over 150. That's dangerous right there. Um, and they take me for the MRI. It comes back and I have fluid on my spine and I forget what else. Probably some swelling or whatever. Which thank God we don't have to go back in for surgery, but that's causing this extra pain. So I finally get out of the rehab and I go home. And I'm just not feeling better. I am just not getting better. I ended up, obviously with now high blood pressure because the doctor, which this is kind of funny on a side note. So this doctor sends me home without blood pressure medicine, which is something you cannot do. You cannot start someone on blood pressure medicine and then abruptly stop it. So now I have high blood pressure and now I'm back on blood pressure medication because of that doctor. So just that's a little FYI, guys. Um, so this is funny. I think I would call him out, and I would say, no, it's not anxiety or, I think you need to do this or whatever. I don't think he liked being called out. And I think you listeners, you may have had this experience with medical professionals. They get a little offended, like, oh, I didn't know you went to medical school too. But feel free to, in my opinion, just tell them if you feel like something's off, then something's off. So as he discharges me, I look at the medications and he literally prescribed Narcan. Mhm. Do we know what Narcan is, guys? Narcan is when somebody overdoses, you do this little spray thing up their nose and it brings them out of this overdose state. And I'm thinking, why in the world would I ever need Narcan? I feel like it was like his silent jab at me. Like, I'm gonna go home and take like, 20 oxy a day. I don't know. I don't even like pain meds. I do not like taking them. My husband had to force me. I'd say, well, I'm just gonna push through. I'm just gonna push through. So I thought that was funny. I also talked to, some of the staff at the rehab center. They said they've never seen him do that before. So I think it was personal. Anywho, yeah, so I leave there, come home, and I mean I come home in a wheelchair, you guys. I can't walk. I'm off balance. Ooh, it was a long road. I know I'm summing this up like it's like really quick, but it wasn't. It's been a long road, journey, path, whatever you want to call it. While I'm going through that though, I do want to talk about sort of the emotional state of it where I'm such a go-getter and I've been through so much in my life that I was living in crisis mode basically when I was in my dysfunctional relationships and abusive relationships. So it was always like if something happened, I had a solution or I'd find a solution or, keeping busy, kept my mind off of stuff. And I couldn't do it this time. I couldn't. Oh, I think that's when I think back to the most frustrating thing is just the crying over the inability to have control over my body and my life. I want to get up and go do stuff, but you can't if you're falling over. You can't if you're weak on one side. You can't go pick up your granddaughter if you're falling over. And, it's just, I wanted normalcy. I wanted to go back to just no pain and let me have my life back. And it didn't happen overnight, although they said it would take almost a year, maybe 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. And here I am talking to you guys, I believe 6 weeks, so about 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks since my last surgery. So very proud of that. So I worked through the walking. I used the walker and I was using the cane. And then, I was just so determined to get back to normal. And so I'm not really normal yet. I still have imbalance, having numbness in, my whole left side. My foot is still numb. Now both my hands go numb. So when I went back to my surgeon and I said, he saw how I was walking and how I'll just fall over. It was really weird too. In my brain, thought I was like straight up, but I was kind of leaning, and that's why I would keep falling. And my husband would laugh and I'd say, it's not funny. But I guess it probably was funny, but it didn't feel funny at the time. So I go back to my surgeon, and of course he's concerned. He's like, I have never seen this before. And that's something that he had said, I think 3 or 4 times when I would have these complications, for him to say, this isn't something I've seen before. I've never had a patient do this before. I don't know. I think that kind of helped me feel like there was a purpose for this, maybe, or at least to say, you're strong enough so that later he'll be able to say, oh, yeah, I did have a patient with this, and this is what happened, and now she's fine. I mean, I've always said that, like, if I have to go through this so one person can be helped, I will. You guys know me. You've heard me say that enough, on this podcast, the Starfish story, it mattered to that one. But it sucked. And that was one of the takeaways I have is it's okay to say it sucks. Even as a mental health provider, practitioner, I don't sit there and go, it's okay. You have to just think positive and just meditate. Everything will be fine. No. When I was going through it, it was like, I hated it. I was frustrated. I cried. I was mad. Um, that I had to go through all this. All I wanted was to have my neck pain free. So that part of it emotionally and mentally was tough. That was the toughest thing, was understanding why this keeps happening. And I'm certain people who get cancer say, oh man, especially, when you're younger and you have a lot of life left to live. Um, I'm sure people who get in a car accident and, or people who have tragic accidents where they end up paralyzed. I mean, it's so normal to say, why me? And I sort of turned it around, and this is something that I'll never forget and that I value and I do as much as I can. One of the coolest things that I realized is who in my circle is there for me and what friends are there for me. Not just, the friends that are like, I'll do whatever you need, I'm here. No, but the friends that, like, I have one friend and I'm shouting her out, Dawn. She literally still is every week asking, how am I doing? How am I doing? She was unfailing in her love and care and concern for me. And she lives in another state. She lives in California. I'm in Texas. And it touched me so much. I just was like, I can never repay how good that felt, that she took that time out every week, every day, whatever, to see how I was doing. And I had another girlfriend, Christy. Shout out to my Christy girl. Same thing. And Christy's fun because Christy's so matter of fact that no matter what you have going on, she has a way of, like, I don't want to say diminishing because it's not diminishing, but she has a way of, like, taking away the emotion of it and just kind of like matter of facting it. I love that. And I love that, love, love, love that about her. And she's just one of my besties. And my family, my daughter Jordan, oh, so adorable. She comes up to the rehab center and my grandson. My grandson brings me this little, I don't know where he got it. He's so sweet. Just this little dog. And I still have it on my vanity because it was so special. And so my daughter brings me, oh, I took it off. I was wearing it today. She made a bracelet, and brought it and it said, unbreakable. And it's those little tiny things that I don't think we understand how important they are, how insignificant others may view it as, but I still wear that bracelet. She also had gotten me what's called a healing reading. Oh, that that was kind of this emotional boost that I needed. The woman who did the reading, it was like everything in that reading was about how, you know, my how my body is going to thank me later and how, all of this is for a legacy. And it was just absolutely incredible. So those are just some ways, guys, that if you have people in your life going through some traumatic health stuff, do it. Just do those little things. I I have PTSD now, from medical because every single time I go to a doctor, there was something new. Um, and it continues today. I have throat issues. I cannot swallow. I have what's called dysphagia. Food gets stuck, and I'm certain it's from the trauma of 3 surgeries. Also, if you don't know this, but cervical spine surgery requires them to pull your entire um, trachea and, everything over to get to that spine. So doing that twice um, caused some issues, and possibly could have caused a stroke. And so I've had a brain MRI, and there's some abnormal results that I'll find out from a neurologist what happened there. I have some cognitive um, deficits, I guess you could say. So if you hear me say, I've never done that. I'm never an person, but I'll lose thought in the middle of a sentence. I get disoriented easily when I'm driving but that's okay. That, it's just one of those more steps to healing, to getting back to me and where I need to go. But that's now I'm on high blood pressure medication. Now I'm on thyroid medication. So I'm like, I'm a homeopathic believer where I can do things healthy and non-chemical, non-medication. But I guess I learned there are some things that, you just feel fortunate that you have modern medicine at your disposal and it's necessary, unfortunately. But that being said, you have to really pay attention to what you're being given or what you're being told. And you'll hear in my next episode when I speak with a woman named Dana Sherwin. Amazing, amazing, who went through some medical stuff and now she advocates for how to speak to your medical provider. But that aside, I want you to research things. I want you to follow up on things. I want you to get those yearly checkups. Um, Even if there's no history, which there wasn't, according in from what I had been told, there was no history of anything thyroid. It's autoimmune for me. It's Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So, sometimes you don't even know you've got symptoms going on in your body and you have no idea what's causing them. And so autoimmune is a big factor. And that also brings me to compassion for people going through chronic pain and illness. If you know anyone in your family who has arthritis, who has Crohn's disease, who has Lyme disease, those long-term painful things, or even, like with my neck, I know more is to come because it's degenerative. My back, it's degenerative. It's hoping and praying it doesn't happen. I'm trying to exercise and keep it strong, but it's degenerative. There's nothing, not much I can do about it. I can eat healthy, I can keep moving, exercise, etc. But I'm okay with knowing that there's nothing more that I could have done. But I know you know people in your life who suffer, suffer from pain. You know, I remember my grandfather, and this is so weird that how this memory popped up. My grandfather passed away when I was 21. And I remember as a little kid, he had neck surgery. And I remember that he couldn't use his left arm. And so he would lift it up to put it on the table, but it was just his left arm. He could walk. And I had no idea how much pain he was in because I was a little kid. Little kids don't focus on that or soak it in. And as I look back now, I think, oh my gosh, my poor grandfather was just in this pain and he was sitting, he had to sit all the time. I remember hearing him just groan. And he didn't die that old. He was only 76. So I mean, this had been, probably around my age, 55, 60, something like that. And I think back to how much pain he was in, and he was a musician and he loved to play. He had a banjo and a mandolin, and him and my father would get together at my house. Our garage was converted into this music room. And as I look back, I think, wow, talk about some overcoming, that he loved music so much that he would find a way to be able to play that even with a paralyzed arm. And the pain that never goes away. And people who have become addicted to prescription meds. I can see that. I can completely see that. You get to a point where you're either going to go crazy or you're going to take that pill. And luckily, I didn't have the opioid dependence or addiction. But interestingly enough, I was put on medication to heal the nerves in my body and in my neck. And that's called gabapentin. And it helps with, the spasms and all that, because they cut through a lot of muscle, and all those nerves in your spine, affect so many parts of your body. I mean, including your bladder and your breathing. And it's so interesting. So I've been on this gabapentin since my second surgery, since my first neck surgery. And I don't think anything about it because I gave my dog gabapentin when he had hip dysplasia. So I thought, well, I gave it to my dog. This can't be, too bad. So I took it, and finally, I think it was last week, I stopped taking it on Friday. Was it last week? Yeah. Anyway, I stopped taking it because I thought, okay, I should be good. I'm walking better. I know I might be numb still, but hey, at least I'm better. I stopped taking it, and I didn't tie this in. I didn't even think about it because I wasn't taking pain meds either. I was taking like one at night if my pain had escalated, but that'd be like one every 4 days or whatever. But all of a sudden, I had 2 days of horrific withdrawal symptoms, which I've never taken drugs, so I don't know. I know what I've learned about it, but I've never experienced what those who have had withdrawals go through. And it's just the hot chills, the sweating and then freezing at the same time, migraine, body aches, nausea. Oh man, you wanted to just, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. It was just terrible. So by Sunday night, I told my husband, I'm going to the ER. I have to go to the ER. I can't take this. I can't take this anymore. As it turns out, all those medications that I was given in that rehab were so counterproductive with one another. They should not have been combined between the benzo and the oxy and gabapentin. So that doctor did a lot of harm. So as I go into the emergency room, I tell this doctor, I don't know if it's the opioid. I don't know. I haven't taken one in whatever many days. Um, and I said, and I've stopped taking most of my medications that I don't need anymore, like gabapentin. And she went, wait, what? And I said, yeah. And I was taking what, 300 milligrams, let's see, eight of them. So that was a lot, eight of them a day at 300 milligram. And that dosage is very high in the ER doctor, which I really did like, was just sort of dumbfounded. She gives me a gabapentin and um I think she also gave me something, to calm me. And instantly everything was fine. I slept for, 30, 40 minutes, whatever, and then everything was fine. So that example of it doesn't have to be an opioid to withdraw. I didn't have enough knowledge about the medication I was taking to know that. So I'm hoping this information, is this pay it forward, help someone else at some point. If any of you, and I hope you don't, if any of you take this information because you need it, because you're going through something, um, then I'm okay that I went through it all and I came out on the other side, and you will too. You will too. So you know what? It's still ongoing. I'll find out what's wrong with my throat. I will find out what's wrong with my mind, my brain. Um, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I learned that I was stronger than I thought I was. I learned that what I've always said on this podcast was that your mental health overspills into your physical health. And I disagree now because my mental health was fine and my physical health affected my mental health. So it's that whole mind, body, and spirit thing that we have to be in sync. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say this sucks. This sucks to be in chronic pain. This sucks to have cancer. This sucks to go through chemo. This sucks to have complications from a procedure. Like it's okay to say that. I'm giving you that permission. So that's my story, and I'm just so happy to be back, you guys. I'm so happy. Um, I value my voice now, in literally and figuratively, but I value having a voice because I didn't realize how the world does not cater to people without a voice, maybe hearing impaired or, seeing impaired, but the world does not cater to voice impairment. And, whew, I found that out. However, I do have to say this. McDonald's actually had a sign that said, if you have trouble hearing or speaking, drive up to the next window. And I thought, good for you, McDonald's. Good for you. Because it's not something you think about. I had to have something on my phone when people would talk to me and I'd say, hey, I had thyroid surgery and I don't have a voice. I'm so sorry. And once I did that, people were like, oh, okay. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be able to say, here's what's happening to me. And I'm not really that person. I like to talk about sort of, the personal health stuff. I was always I don't need to go to the doctor person and, I'll be fine. I'm fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. My husband laughs because that's my motto most of the time. But you know what? It's okay not to be fine. And it's okay to advocate. It's okay to switch providers. It's okay to stand up to condescending physicians. It's okay to say, I don't want to be on that medication. There's so much power that you have. I think it's changing because I know my generation, you just listen to the doctor and you did what the doctor said. And I love that now we don't have to do that. You're allowed to say, no, that doesn't work for me. I don't like that. This is what I'm experiencing. And if you're not going to listen, I'll find someone who does. So, yeah. So That being said, I'm so happy to be back. I love you all. I really do. And I so appreciate that you support my podcast, that you listen. Keep those reviews coming. It matters. And I have a new children's book out called My Cat Grayson is Not Like Me, and it embraces differences. And I think right now, in the state of this country, whew, embracing differences is really key. I mean, you'll probably see it among your friends and your family as I do. We just have opposing views, and that's okay, and opposing beliefs, and we're all going to be um, very strong in those convictions, but let's not let go of the love and the compassion that we have for one another and just accept that it's okay to disagree. So that's what my little kids book is about, is that, you know what, differences can be okay. We learn from each other because of the differences. So don't forget to go to my website, lifecoachmaureen.com, for coaching and for my doggy boutique and for my books and all the fun stuff there. And yeah, I love you all. So we're doing it. We're starting again, guys. We're starting again. We're back. She's back. I'm so happy to be back. So I love you all. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Most of all, take care of my furry babies. And until next week, mwah.